Okay, so the Malir Expressway I was really alarmed when I first heard this was coming up.
Okay.
And I started digging into it. I don't know a lot about it, but I recently went to the environmental impact assessment sort of public hearing. So when you have any big building thing that the government wants to do in a city like Karachi, and it's a project that is going to take millions of rupees and is going to be built on the land and affect people, they have to go through different processes. And one of them is obviously checking if it's going to damage or have an impact on the surrounding environment, right? So this Malir Expressway came up during Ishrat Ibad's time. So it's a very old sort of plan. And the problem with Karachi is that the government's forever sort of grappling with how to create these corridors of access, because you have the shipping containers that need all the goods that need to be transported up country, and you have people living in the city who need to get around to neighborhoods. So there was an old master plan from 1975 that said, you could do a northern bypass and a southern bypass, and that would and that's what happens in big cities. You have ring roads and this kind of like connective road infrastructure. So they had the Liari Expressway, which was a really bad disaster. And then when they started talking about the Malir Expressway, I was like, what is going on? Because I cannot imagine they want to build a road next to the Malir River. Now, the only important things you need to know about the Malir River is that it's seasonal, right? So when you think of rivers in Karachi and cities, great cities, if they have a river, like you think of London and you have the Thames there, you have Paris and the Seine. Malir and Liari rivers were not quite like that because they're seasonal. So when it rains, then 2 weeks during the year they would get water, right? They'd flood. So they're not like perennial rivers. But surrounding them, Malir has a lot of green space, right? They have orchards, and it used to be the breadbasket of Karachi. So they now want to connect defense to the highway, right? So they want Bahria and DHA City to be connected. And this is not me and my assessment. This is from Chief Minister House. It's a handout where they said this is why we're building it. This is also on the website for the way they're building it through their public-private partnership office. So they say they want to build this thing. The problem is that they've changed the design for it. They've flipped it from the left to the right or the right to the left bank.
Of the river?
Yes, of the river, because what happens is that you have villages that are coming in the way that happen to be People's Party constituencies. Now, no one should be uprooted, but this is, when you change designs, it can be really disastrous. I'll give you an example. When at Gulbai, a flyover collapsed just a month after Musharraf inaugurated it. It was at Paracha Textile Mills. It was the flyover because they couldn't acquire some land, so they did a really sharp 90-degree curve. And a month after it opened for traffic, it collapsed and it killed somebody. So when you change the alignments or the routes of these major expressways, there's a lot more engineering that has to be considered. So that's alarming. The other thing is there's no transparency. Like, I was at the environmental hearing, right? So they started sort of getting the wheels rolling for this in 2018.
Right.
And they're having the environment hearing for the farmers of Malir now. And Bilawal already did the groundbreaking ceremony. So it's just like, okay, look, how are you really including the people of that area in the discussion? And it was really sad because at the hearing, this NESPAC guy, they did the whole environmental study. He went on giving the method by which they had studied it, but not the results. It's a real clever way of doing it. That we interviewed 20 women and 24 men, and we looked at these areas. Well, what did you find? He didn't share that in many instances during that hearing. And I was in the room. It was a shadi hall. There were all of these Baloch, Sindhi, and some Pathan men sitting. They were clearly people who could not have read the 800-page report in English. How are they going to cross-question the government? There were fortunately a couple of urban planners present there, a couple of PhD students. I was really surprised. And they had gone through the documents, so they brought up all of the objections.
Right.
But it's still going to go ahead. And the worst part is all the rich people who have plots there in these areas, in these gated communities, including people in my family, they're like, no, Malir Expressway is great. And there's only one reason why it's not great. when you build along a river, people say, oh, everyone does it in other cities of the world. They've done it in Japan and China. That's true. Building along a river is a great idea, but only cities that have good drainage do it. Karachi does not have good drainage, and I don't need to prove that point.
Right.
Everybody who lives in this city knows we have really bad drainage.